comfortable with the biracial child, but I'm not comfortable with the full African American child. I guess I just would love your opinion on whether or not that's really different from the perspective of the adoptee.
Race is a factor in pretty much every single adoption in the United States, even when white people adopt a white child, because the adoption industry has turned adoption into a baby selling business. The adoption industry in this country spent decades giving discounts on mixed race children and even bigger discounts on fully black children. As you can see here, the exclusive program is for fully Caucasian babies only, the conventional program is for all races, and the fully African American program is only for fully African birth parents, no other race or race combinations. When people have a child of their own, the baby comes out the way the baby comes out. But when you're buying a baby from an adoption agency, in many cases, the adoption agency will send you a list where you get to pick and choose which characteristics you're willing to accept in a child. Here's a real world example of race selection in adoption, almost like you're creating a character in a video game. These adopters are willing to accept a white child, but not a Hispanic child, Asian child, or black child. They're willing to accept a mixed race Hispanic or Asian child, but they're not willing to accept any black child in any case. As Americans, I think we need to ask ourselves, if adoption is child welfare, why are people getting options to pick and choose which children they're willing to care for? If there are children in need of care and adoption is an act of child welfare, why are we giving hopeful adopters the ability to opt out of caring for certain children because those children don't fit their lives as well as they want those children to fit their lives? If we're being honest with ourselves, adoption in America is not about finding families to care for vulnerable children. It's about finding vulnerable children to sell to rich, hopeful adopters. Adoption agencies in this country try to mask that reality, but they're not even that good at hiding the truth from people, because you can see right here, the variable cost in everything is marketing and advertising. $16,000 for the white program, $14,000 for the mixed race, $10,000 for the black program. So what does this mean? Why is there a higher marketing cost for a white adopted child? Well, there's two possibilities here. Possibility number one is that the adoption agency just knows there's a ton of demand for adoptable white children and is willing to charge you more because they can. I think both of these possibilities are true in their own way for what it's worth. But possibility number two is that it costs more money to convince a pregnant white person to relinquish her child for adoption than statistically it would cost to convince a pregnant black person to relinquish her child for adoption. I think it's important to remember, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in advertising costs per customer, by the way. It costs an insane amount of money to convince people to relinquish their children for adoption, but it makes sense that it would cost less to convince a person who statistically is more likely to be living in poverty to relinquish her child for adoption. It is so depressing to me that we live in a country that is unwilling to give mothers $1,000 to raise their own kids, but will give hopeful adopters tens of thousands of dollars in tax credits to subsidize the massive profits of the adoption industry at the expense of vulnerable children and their families.